This show is brought to you in part by viewers like you who joined a Patreon or become YouTube members. Thank you. And if you could, hit the like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
All right, let's do the 2023 redraft. Now, this one, there is a pick in this draft that completely would change everything. A lot of these picks switch up what the Browns do slightly, but not entirely. One of these selections here, given that we're still assuming that after the 2021 season, whether it be a disappointing playoff exit or a disappointing end to the season, the Browns still decide to make a trade here to get Deshaun Watson, right? Because we're going to be dealing with the picks that you lost from the Deshaun Watson trade and trying to make the best draft out of what the Browns ended up having because of that. Assuming that's still going to happen, assuming you still trade for Amari Cooper and everything that went down in the 2021 offseason did go down. There are some moves here that would have likely been made with the benefit of hindsight, I guess, that they change everything. Let's jump into it, right? We're starting off strong with the changes, but the draft itself, you're going to have to wait a little bit to see what I mean with these changes. So the Browns had 3 third-round picks in 2023. They went pick 68. They took Martin Emerson. I have them taking Martin Emerson again. Same principle as the Greg Newsome pick. Best corner available, right? Alex Wright, I still have them taking Alex Wright. I think that's a fine enough bet to make at 78. The third round picks are where things change. Now, they originally selected David Bell here at pick 99. There's no need to draft David Bell in 2023 now because you just hit on Amon-Ra St. Brown. You got Mooney. There's really no need to get another wide receiver here in the third round. So I think the Browns would switch it up and draft Michael Clemens in this draft, a defensive tackle, because they did go defensive tackle at pick 108 with Perion Winfrey originally. So it would make sense if they just went a little earlier here because now they don't have to worry about wide receiver in this scenario. Round 4, the original Perion Winfrey pick. It's a shame. Very talented player, but just did not have it together off the field to be able to stay on the field, and then ended up having to play in spring football. Now back in the NFL with the Patriots. We'll see what he does there. I think he's super young, super talented still, but obviously, I understand why the Browns don't want him on the roster, and I don't think the Browns should bring him on the roster. So they don't take Perion Winfrey at 108. 2022 Quincy is not very happy, but 2025 Quincy will be very happy because with that selection, they take Isaiah Likely at 108, which would have made a ton of sense, right? The Browns were considering moving on from David Njoku at that time. They were going to move on from Austin Hooper, right? So they knew that the room had to add another body. I think Isaiah Likely, who can be a bit of a tweener between a wide receiver and a tight end, makes a ton of sense there. Round 4, pick 124, they picked Cade York. I was never a fan of this selection. He had like 1 or 2 moments in Cleveland, to be fair to him, right? And he did make the kick that won the Browns their first opener in 20 years, which is something, right? But let's be real here. The Browns would not be selecting him again. They would be taking Tyler Algier, running back. He most notably has played for the Atlanta Falcons. But again, same scenario as before. The Browns took a running back in the 5th round. Cade York, I don't want to take another kicker again. Not Cade York. So they move up at running back to the 4th round instead of the 5th round here. And keep in mind, right, the Browns drafting 2 running backs at this time period, it does matter because D'Ernest Johnson is on his way out the roster. And also Kareem Hunt's not that far away from being booted off the team originally, right? Now he came back in 2023 because they had no other choice. But in this scenario, Kareem Hunt probably ain't coming back after this 2022 season because they got Algier, they got Khalil Herbert, they have some actual backups there for them. Now, here's another selection that's going to change things, right? They went 156, Jerome Ford originally. I have them switching that to Deron Bland. One, because Andrew Berry has never seen a defensive back that he doesn't want to draft. Two, because he is going to want to replace Troy Hill, who will be gone pretty soon. And it's clear it's not working out even in this timeline. And Deron Bland, 5th round pick, makes a ton of sense to replace him. Now, Deron Bland ended up becoming a much better player than that. And I wonder, like, what happens with Martin Emerson? You know, what happens with Greg Newsome? Are they more willing to trade Greg? Because now you can put, or maybe Martin becomes more movable after a couple of years. But it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Deron Bland, I believe, wasn't he a Defensive Player of the Year candidate and an All-Pro already in his career? He had that year where he had all those interceptions. Let me double check this, make sure I ain't talking out my ass. Yeah, he one team All-Pro, one team Pro Bowl. I think he got injured last year, but Deron Bland would be the selection there. 6th round, 202. They originally took Mike Woods. I have them still taking Mike Woods. Round 7, pick 223. They originally took Isaiah Thomas. I have them taking Thane Mudford, offensive lineman. Add some more depth there. And then round 7, pick 246. They originally took Dawson Deaton. I have them taking Brock Purdy. Now, this is where we do a detour here, right? Because Brock Purdy is really good for a 7th round pick, but really interesting for the Browns in this scenario. I think Brock Purdy is the type of quarterback Kevin Stefanski loves, right? Somebody who can handle being in a structured system, but doesn't need to be told everything that he needs to do, right? Can do some thinking on his feet. I think that's kind of what Kevin likes, right? The skill set, the strengths that Brock Purdy has showed and everything else. Does Brock Purdy become Brock Purdy in Cleveland? There's a question there, right? Some people will say, well, you know, that's Kyle Shanahan doing what Kyle Shanahan does, but I would make the argument that I think it's pretty likely that he would have those skills translate to Cleveland's offense at that time, right? We're talking about 2022, right? This is before they got Ken Dorsey, brought Ken Dorsey in. This is still Alex Van Pelt and Kevin Stefanski, West Coast offense, which is the same thing that he thrives in with the San Francisco 49ers. He would have a lot of talent on that offense and a really strong offensive line in this scenario, right? We're talking about Tristan Wirfs, Tyler Biadasz instead of Jed Wills and Ethan Posick, right? So that is a big difference there. Wide receivers, we're talking about having Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? Amari Cooper on top of that. Like, this is a really good scenario. Also, there's the question of, hey, if you draft Brock Purdy, does he start instead of Jacoby Brissett? I think the answer to that is no, because hindsight being 2020 is the only reason we would think that Brock Purdy would start immediately as a rookie. The reality is that Brock Purdy didn't start immediately as a rookie in San Francisco. He wasn't going to start immediately as a rookie in Cleveland, and it was going to take circumstance for him to play in Cleveland. Now, circumstance for him to play would probably not pop up in 2022. 2023, though, it absolutely would pop up for Brock Purdy to play, and not just play, have the opportunity to stabilize the quarterback position. Keep in mind, the Cleveland Browns are going to take a quarterback 2023 anyways, so they were not going to abstain from it in the 7th round of 2022. And if it's Brock Purdy in 2023 that starts that game against the Baltimore Ravens, and let's say Brock looks like how Brock did to start his career in San Francisco, how much different do things go at that point, right? part of the shakiness with the whole Joe Flacco, Deshaun Watson thing that ended the 2023 season, and we'll talk about this in more detail with the next redraft, is Joe Flacco only played 6 games. Deshaun only played 6 games. It's not enough of a sample to really make any determination off of. But if DTR, instead of DTR, it's Brock Purdy, who comes in right when Deshaun first gets injured, and he plays week 4, he plays week 5, so on and so forth. I'll get into more detail on the next redraft video. Well, shit. Then it starts to become real different. Also, instead of it being a 40-year-old man, it's a rookie. Well, a second-year player who's still under control. How much does shit change for 2024? I think that's the most interesting part of this, because I could see the Browns of making that selection, but maybe they just didn't at the end of the day. They wanted Dawson Deaton, cool. But Brock Purdy, being that 246 pick here for Cleveland, would massively shake up that 2023 season, and by proxy, that 2024 season. But we'll talk about that in the next video. This is still about the 2022 redraft. So this redraft, outside of the Brock Purdy selection, is not the sexiest redraft in the world, right? This is not a, oh my God, this, like, Amon-Ra St. Brown over, Anthony Schwartz type of redraft. This is a more modest change in the redraft, right? I think DaRon Bland changes up a lot here, and let's look at the defense and how it changes. So you get Miles, Lecky Fotu, Clemens, Grenard. You still have Malcolm Smith, and then you have JOK, and now it's Hufanga starting at the strong safety position with Antoine Winfield. And you have DaRon Bland, Greg Newsome in the slot, and Denzel Ward. So, I mean, that's just a pretty damn good defense, really good secondary. The defensive line, I don't think would be super dominant, but they would be really, really functional, which when your secondary is that good, that's really all you want. Offensively, they're running back the same offensive line. They still trade for Amari Cooper in this scenario because they still have the need there at wide receiver. So it's St. Brown, Cooper replacing Jarvis Landry, Mooney, and then Nick Chubb, Watson, and then Brissett, right? So I don't think the quarterback picture changes just yet. The conditions weren't really right for a rookie to get playing time in 2022, especially one taken in the 7th round, no matter how good that rookie played in training camp or in the preseason. Jacoby Brissett was obviously always going to start, right? I made that point during the 2022 offseason when people were arguing that they weren't going to start Jacoby Brissett. I was like one of the few people like, hey, it's obvious he's going to start. And it was obvious that he did. And he ended up starting the whole set, played pretty decent during that run. And then Deshaun Watson comes in, looks rusty, but in 2022, there's a lot of optimism about Deshaun Watson still. That optimism will drain during parts of the 2023 season, but especially during the 2024 season. It's fascinating how fast things went downhill for Deshaun Watson, like doing this redraft. But yeah, that's where you would be. But you got that one piece, right? It's like a Marvel end credit scene of Brock Purdy just sitting there in the wings, knowing the havoc that he's going to cause in this 2023 redraft. But let's jump to that one.